Hey all, here at OS Reviews. You're watching our hands-on review of the RUIZU D08. This is a MP3 player that comes with 8 gigabytes of built-in memory, expandable up to 128 gigs with a micro SD card, and sells for $50. Now the reason why the price is a little bit higher is because it has a larger screen than the other models we've typically seen in the past. It measures 2.4 inches diagonally, and other than supporting lossless audio formats like FLAC, which allows it to be slightly more audiophile grade, high-res audio in terms of the tracks that you can load on it and play, it also supports lots of different video codecs, much more than the typical MP4 player I've seen in the past. So you can load up normal MP4 videos, AVI formats, FLV formats, all of these are supported, and they can be encoded up to full HD resolution and simply drag and drop them onto the player without any converting necessary, even though the technical screen resolution isn't full HD. So a few years ago, the right term to call this would actually be a MP5 player, and the only difference between MP5 and MP4 is MP5 players don't require any conversion because they support all video formats directly out of the box, which is pretty cool. So the emphasis is on video playback. This is kind of the new generation of a MP5 player, but in addition, it also has great audio support because it has lossless audio capabilities. Now, what this player doesn't have, however, is built-in Bluetooth. So unfortunately, you can't connect wireless headphones or earbuds onto this model. Now, it is a little bit of a paradox, however, because in this day and age, we have lots of powerful smartphones with larger and more expansive displays than on a small media player, whereas a few years ago, something like this would have been your go-to device. So whether it makes sense for this to hold all of your video files is another story, but at least it's capable of doing so. Packaging contents include a 3.5mm pair of headphones. It's not a great pair, so I would recommend using your own set, just because again it supports lossless audio, so you would want to pair it with some better quality headphones. And it also has a micro USB cable for charging and syncing information. Again, it's simply a drag and drop player without any software needed on your computer, so you can simply treat it like a micro SD card or a thumb drive for loading back content. There's also a user manual. So taking a quick look at the design of the player here, the first thing that strikes you is how hefty it is in the hand. It's a very chunky device. It's made out of a solid piece of aluminum, but feels very premium. On the bottom is the 3.5mm headphone jack, micro SD card for memory expansion, micro USB port, and on the back here we do have a built-in loudspeaker, so you can share some music without the need to connect to headphones. And we have just the RUIZU D08 logo printed on the bottom here. Battery life is rated to playback video for 5 hours. We've got our power key on the very top, and there's a lock key on the side, which acts as a lock for the touch controls, because these are capacitive, and if you don't want to accidentally trigger them in your pocket, you can simply lock this, and all the keys will no longer be responsive, as you can see there. What's also cool here is that the entire interface is horizontal. We just have the battery life percentage on the top right-hand corner and the time on the top left-hand corner. It still is a traditional LCD display. It's a TN panel, so it's not quite IPS, which means that viewing angles are not going to be the best in the world, but overall it's acceptable and definitely usable. So here is music. You also have functions like video. Each time that you tap on one of the keys, as you can see there, it's also backlit, and it pops onto blue for a moment. If we dim the lights, it'll be a little bit easier to see here. So if I tap on this, you can see it flashes blue, just making it a little bit easier to know if you've actually tapped on something and to find them in the dark, which is actually pretty good attention to detail. It's very responsive to use. Other functions on the carousel included the video playback, FM radio is built on in. There's also a voice recorder. You can use it as a basic ebook reader. Basically, text files can be supported. There's also a photo playback, and under tools, you can find basic elements like a alarm clock, again using the built-in loudspeaker, in addition to a stopwatch, and also a calculator, which is actually really cool. This is a function I haven't seen on other budget MP3 players before, but I can tap on this, and we can see this interface for all of the core features. I do have to navigate around using these keys like a D-pad to cycle through, so it's not quite as convenient as a touchscreen on a phone, obviously, but at least it's there if you do have to access it in an emergency, and again, a pretty cool secondary function. Here's the calendar, also pretty cool, but you can't set notifications or reminders, unfortunately. There's a basic stopwatch that also works quite well. You can set different laps, and again, the alarm clock is over here. You can set up to 3 different alarms. Under settings is where you can adjust things like the screen orientation. So in case you do want to flip it over, even though all of the icons for the capacitive keys are printed in this orientation, you can technically switch it to a vertical display. So if I tap on this, you can see this is what it looks like. And the keys are also then mapped to work in this horizontal layout a little bit better, as you can see there. So it is functional, but you can see that it just changes some of the icons around. Under Advanced is where we can actually change the backlight if you want it to be always on for the keys. You can see now it's just going to be fully blue on the side. So say I want to go into the music interface here, we are able to display all our tracks, and if I tap on one, it just begins playing back. If there is any cover art, it will be displayed on the side. From here, we're able to adjust things like the volume, turn it up and turn it down, and the loudspeaker does actually get pretty loud. The only thing to note though is it doesn't get very punchy in terms of bass. So it's a little bit on the thin side. As expected, it's a very small speaker and it's a really secondary feature, but obviously if you want a louder unit, you would want to plug in your own to the headphone jack. And if lyrics are available for a song, it's also going to be displayed on the side in real time, so if you are doing karaoke, you can also follow along. To access the equalizer, simply tap on the play key for a few seconds longer, and you can simply tap on the first one that appears. You can take a look at pop, classic, soft, jazz, rock, and a user-defined EQ. And you're also able to play it back in slow motion up to 4 times, so you can change the playback speed, which is kind of cool. So all in all, it does a great job as a music player. Right, in terms of the video playback experience, it also does a reasonable job. Here's a quick sample track. You can tell here that the overall experience is also quite good. Obviously, 2.4 inches is no longer a super large size, especially as we're spoiled by phones that have 6-inch displays and above. But all in all, it still is pretty colorful, and if you, again, are watching some quick clips or sharing something with a kid or a child, it will more than suffice. The FM radio function works, it's nothing to write home about, but does require you to plug in headphones to act as the antenna. The voice recorder also is functional. There's a single mic, so it doesn't have excellent noise cancellation, but if you are recording, say, a lecture or a business conference, it is something that is doable, and if you don't have any other recorder around you, it is a nice little secondary feature that is baked in. In terms of the ebook, again, it's very basic, but you're able to just quickly look at any text files stored on here, and the size of the letters are pretty good, but it does sometimes cut off words at not the most convenient places. Definitely no Kindle replacement, but again, if you have some quick notes that you want to store, or maybe grocery lists, checklists, or phone numbers, phone books, and contact info, you can definitely use this to look at that information. So that's been the RUIZU D08. As aforementioned, MP3 players are a dying breed, but something like this can still make sense if you don't want to bring along a more expensive phone when you're on the go, or if you're at the gym, you don't want to bring something that's a bit more bulky. And at the same time, if you're an audiophile and you want to play back more high-res tracks, including FLAC, lossless formats, and this does have a slightly better DAC than the majority of Android and iOS smartphones on the market, unless you look at the really flagship models, such as those from LG, that also have already really impressive audio quality. But if you, again, don't fall into that category, something like this can definitely improve the audio listening experience for music. At the same time, again, this particular model does have the advantage of also supporting a ton of different video formats, being the most unpicky player I've come across yet. And again, in classical terms, it's known as an MP5 player because of its capabilities. Whether that's something that you absolutely need in this day and age is debatable. Some would say that all they want from a music player now in 2019 is probably something like a simple clip, just because for videos they would turn to their phone anyways. But if you do want something that's a little bit fancier, that still has some more built-in features, this is certainly a good option to take a closer look at. So if interested, you can check out more details in the links down below, but for now that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. Overall, a pretty nicely performing player for not too much cash. This has been the RUIZU D08.